Hi, good afternoon. This is Counselor Tour checking in.
Hi, Counselor Tour. We can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Monday, September 22nd, Planning Development Committee meeting. I'll do roll call. Deputy Mayor Singh.
Present.
Councillor Santos. Councillor Vincente. Nothing yet. Councillor Brar.
Present.
Councillor Keenan. Present. Councillor Medeiros. Present. Councillor Fortini. Present. Councillor Tour.
Present.
Councillor Power. All members are here except for Councillor Vincente, but he'll probably be joining us and we'll acknowledge when he does. We'll now begin approval of the agenda. I have related to 11.1.1, Appendix 2, 3, and 4 to be added to the agenda today as 11.1.1.1. The other added item that I'd like to add would be a discussion on DC incentives. Is there anybody else like to add, remove, delete, change anything on the agenda here today? Seeing none, Deputy Mayor Singh, you'll move approval of the agenda. All in favor? That carries. Any members have pecuniary interest? Now is the time to declare.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councilor Tour. I'd like to declare a conflict on the item that is designating heritage properties. My family owns a property right next door to one of them on the list.
Okay, and that item number is to the clerk's office. Charlton's presentation. Okay. 8.1, the Heritage Properties Downtown Brampton Public Engagement Wards 1 and 3. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Councillor Tour. Seeing no others, we'll now enter into the consent items. The items listed that could be held for consent is 7.1, application temporary use zoning bylaw amendment. There are no delegations on this item. Consent. We have a delegation for 7.2. 8.1 is the staff presentation report by Charleston Karskallen, Principal Planner, Supervisor, Integrated City Planning Redesignation, the Heritage Properties in Downtown Brampton Public Engagement Wards 1 and 3. Consent. 9.1 is the Active Transportation Advisory Committee, August 12th, 2025. Consent. Item 11.1 with the added 11.1.1.1 appendix, application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw and draft plan of subdivision with the revised motion that was added to the agenda. Is there any holds on that? Hold that for the motion. Okay. All right. Councillor Tour will leave his room, leave his house for a minute while we vote on the consent agenda. Oh, we have Councillor Vincente. Councillor Vincente, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I hold the minutes from the Heritage Board meeting, please?
I don't have Heritage Board meeting minutes on the agenda. Oh, 9.1. It's right there.
Yes, sir.
I have active transportation on my, so that's not active transportation, it's Heritage Board minutes. Okay. It's being held anyways now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And now the vote for consent, moved by Councillor Santos. All in favor? That carries. We have no general delegations. Our first item then would be 7.2 as 7.1 and 7.11 is in consent. 7.2 is the Credit Valley Secondary Plan Review. Purpose of this official amendment to the Credit Valley Secondary Plan Area 45 CVSP is administrative review, which seeks to align the CVSP land use policy and terminology with Brampton Plan, ensuring consistency across the municipality. We have one delegation on this item. Delegation Sylvia. Sylvia, come on down. Please state your name for the record, and you have 5 minutes.
Hello, my name is Sylvia Roberts. I'm a resident of Ward, sorry, this slide for the other one. I'm resident of Ward 3. Overall, good work on, this is also for the other slide. There were no slides for this one. Overall, thank you staff for this. We have to do the hard work of updating all of the secondary plans to conform to the Brampton plan. I know that there's a lot of work. Some of these plans are very old and there's a lot of technical things to update. I think this one, the original version was referencing the 93 official plan. So it's a lot of work to update all of that kind of stuff. There are a couple areas where moving forward on secondary plans, I'd like staff to make sure to take a look. The official plan includes policies related to walkshed areas and low-rise plus regarding major transit station areas, or yes, the primary corridors and high order transit, and then also support corridors. This doesn't have those changes yet. It doesn't matter that much on this file because most of the development is actually quite new, and so we're not going to see new development, redeveloping properties, houses that are only like 10, 15 years old in many cases. So it doesn't matter on this one, but moving forward, especially when we get to the Flowertown area, Bramalea, and then the downtown core, greatly appreciate if we can keep that on our mind for the future secondary plans. That's all I wanted to say on this item.
Sorry, thank you very much for your delegation. Been moved by Councillor Power to receive the delegation and the report. Item 7.2. All in favor? That carries. Along with 7.2.1, correct? Clerk's office, yes, okay. Item 8.2 is a staff presentation and a report from Richa Dave, Project Manager, Integrated City Planning, 2051 Brampton Mobility Plan. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm not Risha Dave. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Risha couldn't join us, and I'll give you an update later. My name is Nelson Cadet. I'm the Manager of Transportation Planning. And this afternoon, we're excited to present to you the 2051 Brampton Mobility Plan, which is our latest update to our Transportation Master Plan. I'm joined today by Suzette Shu from HDR, a consulting firm that was retained to help us with the mobility plan. Suzette will be co-presenting this afternoon, as well as assisting with questions the committee may have that may be more technical in nature. At some point, I'll also be calling on Mark Medeiros from our corporate budget office to help outline some of the financial implications of the BMP. Before we begin, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the hard work from our transportation planning staff who are in the audience today for the development, all the hard work and the development in this plan, as well as, and most important, our project manager, Risha Dave, who is extremely upset she couldn't be with us this afternoon, but we definitely should recognize her leadership on this initiative. Next slide, please. The Brampton Mobility Plan is the city's long-term transportation infrastructure plan to support future growth and guide transportation infrastructure investment over the next 25 years. It's guided by Brampton 2040 vision, the Brampton Plan, and council-endorsed guiding principles. The plan is updated every 5 years to reflect the latest policy direction, growth projections, provincial legislation, and council priorities. The BMP identifies a comprehensive set of recommended projects that can be considered through future studies, business plans, and budget cycles. These recommendations are not commitments to implementation by identified horizon year, but rather a strategic guide that allows the city to advance projects in response to available funding, growth realities, and evolving community needs. Next slide, please. The Brampton Mobility Plan was guided by 7 guiding principles that were endorsed by Council in 2021, which calls for the mobility plan to enhance mobility and travel options for people and goods, improve environmental sustainability, integrate transportation and land use planning, protect public health and safety, advance multimodal transportation equity, leverage technology, and emphasize community engagement and collaboration. The guiding principles were integrated into each stage of the Brampton Mobility Plan process and became the foundation for the evaluation framework used to assess the alternatives. Next slide. And with that, I'll hand over the presentation to Suzette, who will take us through the study behind the BMP.
Thank you, Nelson. Good afternoon, members of committee. So as noted, the 7th guiding principle emphasized community engagement and collaboration. The development of the Brampton Mobility Plan was informed by public and stakeholder consultation at various stages of the study. To maximize our reach, we went to places the public were already at, rather than having the public come to us. We held our main open house sessions at Shoppers World and Bramalea City Center malls, and the project team also set up a booth at the Brampton Farmers Market for a few Saturdays. This enabled us to reach a broader group of people that we would not have otherwise reached. Over 600 comment forms and survey responses were received. The study website had over 5,000 hits and 1,300 social media ad interactions. We also engaged with more than 17 stakeholder agencies, ranging from Indigenous groups in neighboring municipalities to the Brampton Board of Trade and Greater Toronto Airport Authority. Feedback received from the public can be categorized into 4 general categories: responses that favored investment in transit, on active transportation modes, on vehicle or road-focused issues, or other. Overall, most of the feedback we received related to the need for enhanced transit, particularly the need for better regional transit connections and transit capacity on key corridors that were frequently overcrowded. Approximately 19% of responses related to making improvements to active transportation infrastructure, and approximately 2% of responses directly supported adding lanes or widening roads to ease congestion. Overall, a general theme was that the residents were concerned about traffic congestion, which reinforced the feedback from Brampton's customer satisfaction survey that identified traffic congestion as the 3rd most important issue to Bramptonians, after public safety and housing affordability. Another common theme we heard from residents was the need to focus on improving road safety. And to reflect this, the Brampton Mobility Plan includes actions and advocacy positions targeted at Vision Zero road safety initiatives. Next slide, please. Brampton's growth in the last half-century has been from greenfield to a major suburban municipality. And in that time, transportation planning studies have primarily recommended widening roads to accommodate future growth in vehicular mobility. This approach worked, and Brampton now has a network of 4- and 6-lane north-south and east-west urban arterials focused on moving cars. Brampton's new reality is that Brampton is becoming a major urban city with 1 million people who have diverse needs for travel options beyond the automobile. We also know today that widening roads to address congestion may alleviate it in the short term, but will end up generating more traffic and congestion in the longer term. And we will speak to that later in the presentation. Next slide, please. Brampton is a growing city. The maps on the screen show population and employment density in Brampton, where the lighter zones are less dense and the darker zones are more dense. On the left is Brampton in 2021, and on the right is Brampton in 2051. Brampton's population is expected to grow by 430,000 more people and 200,000 more jobs. For context, 430,000 people is equivalent to the current population of Burlington and Oakville combined, and this magnitude of people will be added to Brampton in the next 25 to 30 years. Future growth will be spread across the city, with more focused growth in the city's centers and boulevards. Focusing more of the growth to the centers and boulevards, such as Queen Street and Steeles Avenue, and in new development areas such as Heritage Heights, will also help support more sustainable ways to move people. Next slide, please. Today, 81% of daily trips in Brampton are made by using the private automobile. If current trends continue, by 2051, we would see an additional 150,000 car trips on the road network in the morning peak period alone. However, if we achieve the mode share targets set in the Brampton Plan and increase our use of active transportation by just 2% and increase our use of transit by just 15%, we can reduce the expected number of additional car trips by almost 50%. That's 70,000 less car trips in the morning peak period. Next slide, please. So Brampton Plan mandates the investigation of alternatives to increase person throughput in a street rather than focusing on 6-lane road widenings to increase vehicle capacity. It also mandates the prioritization of sustainable modes and requires that all new streets in Brampton be built as complete streets. Together, these will help Brampton to achieve a shift in mode share, to be future ready for the city's evolution, to ensure equity in how travel options are provided, and to make the most efficient use of public space. In accordance with Brampton Plan's policy framework, the Brampton Mobility Plan explored 3 alternative scenarios. The first scenario, business as usual, reflected the city's traditional approach of widening roads up to 6 lanes to increase vehicle capacity in the network. The second scenario, Brampton Plan, reflected the city's structure and policies identified in Brampton Plan. It focused on person throughput, limiting road widenings to 4 lanes only, and assuming any previously recommended 4 to 6 lane road widenings would be built as 4-lane complete streets to increase person carrying capacity. The third scenario, Bold Moves, was an ambitious scenario that reflected significant investment in developing a grid of higher order transit and complete streets. The term higher order transit refers to both LRT or BRT forms of transit, and both are considered higher order in our study. Through analysis, evaluation, and consultation, the preferred alternative is primarily the Brampton Plan scenario, but with additional elements from the Bold Move scenario that was added on. Next slide, please. We know that the true cost of a car-centric transportation system goes beyond just the initial cost of construction. Other costs that are incurred are shown on this slide. The Canadian Centre for Economic Analysis estimated the cost of congestion to the economy in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area to be $10.1 billion in 2024. The Financial Accountability Office of Ontario projects that the effects of climate change will require an additional $1.5 billion annually to maintain public transportation infrastructure in Ontario. Reliance on the automobile reduces potential for physical activity and social interaction, and according to Public Health Ontario, 23% of deaths in Ontario can be attributed in some way to physical inactivity. Vehicle exhausts release pollutants like nitrogen oxides, volatile organic compounds, and particulate matter, all of which degrade air quality. And Health Canada estimates that air pollution from human sources contributes up to 15,300 premature deaths in Canada per year, of which 6,600 are premature deaths in Ontario. Transport Canada estimated the social cost of motor vehicle collisions at $36 billion in Canada. The leading cause of fatalities and serious injuries was speeding. And higher volumes of cars on major arterials increases the need to implement noise walls to address noise impacts on sensitive land uses. Expanding the road network requires ongoing road maintenance and operations to keep the roadways clear of snow and in a state of good repair. The average lane kilometer cost for road maintenance is over $6,000 a year. Currently, general purpose vehicle lanes on city roads account for 5% of the city's total land area. And finally, traffic and auto-related concerns continue to be one of the most common issues associated with applications for new developments. But this is not all. Continuing to foster a car-centric approach also increases the need for parking, for property acquisitions to accommodate road widenings, and social isolation and equity impacts for residents that are unable to drive or don't have access to a vehicle. So instead of business as usual, we need to prioritize moving people instead of moving cars because the road network simply cannot grow fast enough nor wide enough to keep pace with continued dependence for a city of 1 million residents. Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier, we know now that widening roads to address congestion doesn't solve the congestion problem. Because widening roads makes driving more appealing, and that in turn means more people will choose to drive or choose to make more driving trips. After a short time, the road system becomes congested again, and more roads need to be widened. And the cycle repeats as this again induces more demand. Next slide, please. So instead of business as usual, the preferred alternative in the Brampton Mobility Plan is a combination of select road network expansions, complete street reconstruction projects, new higher order transit and Zoom routes, and active transportation improvements that focus on crossings of railways, highways, and waterways. While the preferred alternative prioritizes sustainable modes, it does not forget about the automobile. The plan includes select road widenings and new roads between now and 2051, particularly in the new development areas. The focus of the Brampton Mobility Plan recommendations are complete street reconstruction projects and a network of higher order transit to truly move a population of 1 million residents. The Brampton Mobility Plan recognizes that implementing sustainable transportation infrastructure alone will not get people to shift to sustainable modes. The plan also includes targeted advocacy positions and actions that the city can take to support infrastructure investment. Next slide, please. The next few slides will provide an overview of the Brampton Mobility Plan recommended networks. The 2051 transit network shown here includes higher order transit projects shown in the dark blue. This includes the LRT extension to downtown and higher order transit on Queen Street, Steeles Avenue, Beauvert Drive, and Airport Road. The Zoom priority transit routes are shown in red, and key supporting routes are shown in light orange. Where a new higher order transit corridor is proposed, these improvements will be phased in over time, with Zoom service first, then later upgrade to BRT or LRT. Brampton's transit network will integrate with the regional transit on GO Rail and future transit ways on Highway 407 and Highway 413, which are shown in green. Next slide, please. While the long-term planning horizon for the Brampton Mobility Plan is 2051, the plan also identifies a beyond 2051 transit network to protect corridors for future expansions of the higher order transit network and for consideration in other planning studies. This includes the addition of higher order transit on Hurontario Street up to Mayfield Road, on Airport Road up to Mayfield Road, and new higher order transit on Mississauga Road, Kennedy Road, Bramalea Road, Dixie Road, and Mayfield Road. Next slide, please. The future 2051 road network is a complete streets network. It is envisaged that all roads will become complete streets over time as streets are rehabilitated or reconstructed as part of the road life cycle. The future street network will also support the future transit network. The light blue dashed lines indicate where streets will support the dedicated transit lanes of the higher order transit network that was shown 2 slides prior. Select road widenings and new roads will also be required, and they are shown on the map. These will support future growth in developing areas such as Heritage Heights in the northwest, Bram West in the southwest, and Area 47 in the northeast. Next slide, please. The recommended active transportation network is very much built on the network from Brampton's Active Transportation Master Plan, but with additional emphasis on making improvements to crossings of railway corridors, highways, and water courses that are existing barriers to walking and cycling in Brampton. Next slide, please. In the earlier slide, it was mentioned that the 2051 road network will be a complete streets network. But what is a complete street? Complete streets are an approach to planning, designing, building, and operating streets to safely and comfortably accommodate all users, including pedestrians, cyclists, transit riders, motorists, and also the movement of goods. well-considered street design depends on many factors, and each street is unique. This includes available right-of-way widths, the street's role in the overall transportation system, the adjacent land uses and character, and other unique qualities. Next slide, please. A question that is often asked is how do complete streets accommodate growth if no new lanes are added? Will complete streets maximize the efficiency of a roadway by repurposing the right-of-way to give space to active modes and dedicated transit lanes, which have the ability to move more people within that given space? This graphic, developed by the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy, does an excellent job at demonstrating how complete streets can increase people moving capacity for a hypothetical city. The Brampton Mobility Plan team undertook a similar exercise with more conservative assumptions to reflect the Brampton context and gradual approach to changing behavior. The results demonstrated that converting an existing 6-lane arterial to a complete street by adding higher order transit in dedicated lanes and enhanced active transportation infrastructure has the potential to increase person capacity by over 1,000 persons per hour. At a citywide scale, the recommended alternative could increase person capacity by about 20% for residents traveling east-west across the city and about 18% for travel north-south. To support the infrastructure networks, a handful of the 62 actions and 47 advocacy, next slide, please. So a handful of the 62 actions and the 47 advocacy positions that are part of the Brampton Mobility Plan are presented here. Some key actions and advocacy positions are applying a multimodal level of service analysis in all transportation studies, where all modes of travel are assessed, not just cars. Developing and implementing strategies for behavior change to promote and incentivize sustainable travel modes. Supporting Metrolinx on the delivery of the LRT extension to downtown Brampton and on other higher order transit projects. Partnering with Peel Region Police on road safety initiatives. Partnering with other levels of government, transit agencies, and other agencies to implement the recommendations of the plan. And continuing to advocate for dedicated funding for transportation infrastructure in the city of Brampton. I'll now pass the presentation back to Nelson for the next set of slides.
Thank you, Suzette. The preferred alternative aligns with a number of the council priorities identified on this slide, but most notably, it implements the policy direction identified in the Brampton Plan, which mandates Brampton's street network to be planned as complete streets and that the city will investigate alternate to 6-lane road widenings to increase person throughput of a street rather than focus on vehicle capacity. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the Brampton Mobility Plan is a guiding document that represents a bold and future-ready approach to planning and delivering transportation infrastructure in a rapidly growing and evolving city. The recommendations provide options for consideration in future budget cycles rather than a fixed commitment, allowing the city to respond to funding availability, growth patterns, and emerging priorities. So the slide shows sort of that breakdown of the potential costs. The overall cost of the Brampton Mobility Plan is approximately $9.9 billion over the next 25 years. Of the 9.9, approximately 6.9 is attributed to higher order transit, which includes the tunneled LRT to the downtown and contributions to Zoom, which we require advocacy and funding from higher levels of government. So the remaining $3 billion, will need to be primarily funded through a combination of development charges and property tax. This aligns with the roads capital program in the current DC bylaw. But in light of recent legislative decisions impacting development charges, and the city's finance team has undertaken an exercise to determine the possible future funding based on the availability over the past 3 years. So I'm going to call Mark Medeiros up to take us through a couple of the next finance-related slides. Next slide.
Thank you, Nelson, and thank you, members of council and the planning team for allowing me to speak today. So as mentioned in the presentation, this plan unlocks $10.1 billion of GDP growth in the economy. That GDP growth is every year. So if we were to execute this plan, there are billions of dollars of tax revenue that are going to go to the federal and provincial government through income tax, sales tax, capital gains tax. So this plan really unlocks that GDP growth and allows other levels of government to take in vast amounts of revenue. So having said that, this plan is largely predicated on the other levels of government stepping up one time. This is a one-time investment for them to invest in this infrastructure, for them to incur annual billions of dollars of revenue through sales tax, income tax. So you can see here that of the 9.9 billion, a lot of it is predicated on other levels of government stepping up. In addition to that, we will need increases in development charges and property taxes. So basically all stakeholders would need to invest more to execute this plan and unlock that $10 billion of investment. Just to explain how we got here, we looked at the last 3 years of funding that we've provided, and we said, okay, like, what have we been spending on buses? What have we been able to afford on road widenings? And we took all that and we said, this is the average that we can afford today, and compared it to this plan. So you see that it's about 3 times development charges. We need about $100 million more in property taxes. If we go to the next slide, please. So you can see here the breakdown of what we believe today, based on the existing funding sources and levels that we have today, is fundable, and then what is unfunded. But again, the majority of this is advocacy to the province. They will benefit tremendously by us unlocking this congestion and increasing GDP. So that's the crux of this plan financially. Thank you. I'll turn it back to Nelson.
Thanks, Mark. Next slide. So the 2051 Brampton Mobility Plan is a culmination of extensive technical analysis and public and stakeholder consultation to develop a framework for the city's transportation network that is future-ready, manages congestion, supports the movement of all peoples and goods, ensures that road users of all ages and abilities have a reliable travel option. Staff is now seeking endorsement of the Brampton Mobility Plan from the Planning and Development Committee. Following endorsement from the committee and ratification at council, staff will issue a notice of master plan and make the report available for a 30-day public view period. Next and final slide. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Nelson. Thank you, Suzette, and big thank you to Richa. I know she really wanted to be here. She put a ton of work into this, so let her know that committee really thanks her for all the work that she's put into this. Councillor Santos.
Thank you so much. Through you, Mr. Chair, and indeed, thank you very much to the team. There has been a lot of work, a lot of consultation, many conversations about this to find the right balance in the mobility plan moving forward. A couple of questions from me with respect to congestion. I understand the concept of induced demand, 100%, which is why I like the mobility plan, which takes a balanced approach to start to shift the culture away from just simply relying on cars. But in terms of congestion, how much of the congestion that is perceived right now has to do with construction?
Through the chair, thanks for the question. It's a very tough thing to manage. On a corridor by corridor specific basis, even that's a challenge. But we have some experience recently of where we've been studying a corridor, and it's had a significant amount of impact for sure. Construction right now seems to be at in some parts of the city had significant impact on a lot of congestion through the city right now.
So while there is a perception, I know Commissioner Ganesh wants to add something as well, but while there's a perceived, there's a perception that there's a lot of congestion and, folks who are talking about other infrastructure being the cause for the congestion. In fact, the major corridors of Williams Parkway, Queen Street, Sandalwood Parkway, you name it, Dixie, those major corridors are currently under construction. So Steve, if you want to go ahead.
Through you, Chair Pelletier, through to Councillor Santos, I was just going to simply augment to Nelson. And while we are undertaking some sort of corridor-specific analysis on congestion related to construction, one can appreciate, and this council has also already echoed to it, it ripples across the city. So if we shut down a lane, say for resurfacing or milling or whatnot on a particular road, parallel roads and in parallel subdivision roads then get compounded with the congestion they normally face, where that tends to be, I guess, most contentious for residents and businesses is at the intersections, because the timing of those signals aren't always calibrated to acknowledge the new congestion impact that we are normally used to.
And through you, Mr. Chair, that segues perfectly into my next question, which is about the intersections and the timing of the intersections. I know that on Williams Parkway, we are improving using artificial intelligence for the traffic signals on Williams Parkway. How does the mobility plan use technology, or considering technology, in order to move traffic a little bit, the flow better, particularly at those pressure points of main intersections?
Yes, so we did look at emerging technologies and or technologies today and how we can maximize the efficiency of the existing network. And we do speak to some actions in terms of, yes, applying, traffic management systems to help use the system that we have more efficiently, whether that is intersection timings or other transit priority signals, things like that, to just manage the system that we have a little bit better.
Perfect. Oh, go ahead, Nelson.
Yeah, and specific to Williams Parkway, I mean, in the city currently, the way we manage sort of congested intersections is we have detection systems. So if there's a presence of vehicles, for instance, on a leg of an intersection, it reacts to that. What we plan on doing with the AI technology is actually learning from demand at intersections and then implementing those timing plans based on what we expect traffic will be at a certain given day and a certain given time in a day.
Cool. Final question, sorry, Mr. Chair, is related to the cost of road infrastructure. And thank you, Mark, for giving us the reality check in terms of how much road infrastructure costs. A lot of the pressure points and bottleneck congestions happens at exits of major highways. In Brampton, that would be the 410, and in the future would be 413. And so I think this is not really a question, perhaps, but happy to hear you comment. But I think that in our advocacy, as the province delivers the 413, we have to let them know that if you don't give us money to deal with the congestion at those exit points, there's no point in you building this highway, because there's still going to be congestion on our local roads.
Thank you.
Was that a question for?
It's Mark.
Yeah, well, we'll bring Mark up anyways. Thanks, Nelson. Mark, what's the, you said it's 1.9 billion is 1.9 million on the slide for DCs?
I think the slide, I think it was 0.8 billion we project to have, and 2.4 we would need for the 26-year plan.
2.4 is what we require for which project?
For the whole plan.
For 2051?
26 years. Yeah, we're talking, billions, 2.4 billion, I believe, from DCs, as opposed to if we were to use the same historical level of funding, which was 70 million a year, we'd probably have about 800 million, but we need about 2.4 billion.
2.4 billion. Okay, and then if we don't get that in DCs, then where do we take that funding from?
Fair question, Councillor. I think ultimately it would come down to the other levels of government that are benefiting from the GDP. I think there's tremendous pressure on the developers, and I think there's tremendous pressure on the tax base.
If we don't get that money from DCs, that you assume, I guess, we assume that we're going to go to the other levels of government? Is that what you just said?
I think these are the three levels that we have available.
Or essentially the tax base?
Yeah, so the tax.
So if the other levels of government don't come through, it's tax base funded. Okay.
Yeah, yes.
And what's the calculation over the next 26 years per year? 8.4 billion is unfunded. 1.5 billion is the plausible, but 9.9 over 26 years. So 9.9 divided by 26. Anybody? Anybody in the audience? 260 million per year over the next 26 years. Thanks, Councilor Vicente. Okay. That's something really to, yeah. Because if they're not building right now, then there's no money coming in. So we're hoping that the bubble bursts eventually, right? And then it all starts coming to fruition. Not a question. No other questions? Councilor Santos, you back on? Yes, Councilor Santos.
And to your point, Councillor Pelletier, that's why I wanted to bring up this significant advocacy that needs to happen on this. They actually need to see this and understand, because I should have caught it before in terms of adding the impact of the 413 and the impact of the 410 and those pressure bottleneck points, which are also causing congestion. And so while we all support, having the province invest billions of dollars into that project, what they don't realize is that the traffic on our local roads will get worse if we don't implement this. And we can't implement this if they don't help pay for this as well.
Yes, please.
If I can, Councillor Pelletier, just to explain how the distribution was determined, there's quite a list of all of the projects that would need to happen. And we looked at the existing DC background study and what the percentage of DCs versus benefit to existing. So the tax is really the benefit to existing. Like on transit, the taxpayer has to pay a lot. On roads, I think it's 95 DCs, 5%. So we went through every single one of those and just pinpointed, and this is what came out of it. So that's how the distribution of funding was developed.
Mm-hmm. So, Councillor Pelletier, I'm happy to move the report recommendations of the report, but also add a recommendation that we do forward this to the Minister of Transportation and make it part of our advocacy at AMO, as well as to our federal advocacy. So they are going in eyes wide open when it comes to the challenges we face in our growing community and dealing with congestion.
So, yeah, absolutely. In terms of the advocacy, I'd look to the commissioner or anybody in terms of sending this out now, or does further work need to be done in terms of what specifically we're advocating for, or that's what I wonder.
Through your Chair Pelletier, through to Councillor Santos. So a couple things. Tomorrow, Richa will actually be presenting this plan at the Brampton Board of Trade event right at the Rose Theatre. So certain ministers I know will be attending. Minister Zakaria, Minister of Municipal Affairs, they'll get a sneak preview of this. I would suggest that should council ratify this plan on Monday, we can send a copy of the plan to the Minister of Finance, Municipal Affairs, and Transportation with a CC to MPPs. Okay. Because the projects that make up the total composition have been in previous development charge background studies, so it's not new news per se, but it's the total combination of 2051 that would be the new price tag.
So maybe we just have the discussion prior to us sending it off, just have the discussion with Chris Ether and just to get all the ducks in a row kind of thing. Well, question, Mark, if we go ahead and budget that dollar amount for X number of years, and those DCs don't come in any particular year, what does it carry over to the next year? Do we have to then, because it's budgeted, do we have to then pay that back by way of something else?
So whenever we create a capital budget, we have to have a reasonable assumption of the revenue coming in. So we can only budget for 15% of this plan. We would need to make decisions, whether that be through property taxes, DC legislation, or other levels of government signed agreements, then we could put in the other 85%. So when we go through the budget exercise, we need to have certainty that the money's going to come to fund what we put in the budget.
Mm-hmm. And specifically to DCs, typically when the growth targets are set by the province, then handed down to the region, and then given to the municipalities, in Brampton, no other municipality has ever met their growth targets, yet we continue to budget based off of what those numbers are. So, and and from my understanding, we've never been penalized for not meeting our targets. But then I assume, and I've said it in previous budgets, where we're budgeting according to what the numbers say, we're not meeting those numbers. So in the past, have we had has that been penalized in any way? Have we had to pay that back, or is it based off of because of a certain percentage of those? And I'm specifically talking about DCs.
So I would say the way the DC study, to your point, is has always been very ambitious based compared to what we've put into the budget. So let's say 50%, 60% of what's in the DC study ends up in the budget. Once it's in the budget, from a municipal finance perspective, each municipality has to determine their comfort in level of risk of putting development infrastructure in advance of getting revenue. So for the city of Brampton, currently, we are in a deficit of about $224 million. So in other words, we have to collect another $224 million from the development community to pay for what we've already approved. We feel
That's current to date?
that's right now.
Okay.
Of what we already approved.
Okay.
We feel that that was a reasonable assumption. We still have a long way to grow. We still got a lot of revenue, so we can pay that back between now and build out. The idea is that you must pay it back between now and build out.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so,
We know eventually it's coming.
we know eventually it was
Sure.
coming. We were getting, approximately, let's say, $78 million a year on average, and we were trying to fund around $70 million. So we're trying to pay like $8 million a year back to get that 224 down over a long period of time. So I would say each year it's a balance of recognizing what that deficit is, recognizing what the DC study says, what the projects we can deliver, and then the challenge we have, I think, now is that with DC revenue declining so significantly, the risk has gone up considerably.
Sure.
So the next budget's going to be a challenge.
So currently today, how much money do we owe in the DCs?
$224 million.
$224 million as we owe today. Okay.
That's after we pay for every project, even the projects that aren't completed. So what council has approved in our capital program,
Yep.
including what hasn't been spent, we pay for all that, we still need 224.
And if no DCs come in through the next year, then that carries over to the next year where we have to then pay back.
And that reserve has to pay interest, because we are, as an organization, through other reserves, cash flowing that 224. We're not borrowing it, we're internally borrowing it.
Right.
So we're charging interest to that. So that
To
224
ourselves.
grows a little bit,
We charge interest to ourselves.
We charge it.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Mark. Been moved by Councillor Santos. With the revised direction.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. It should say that the mobility plan be sent, not the development plan.
Oh, yeah, it's a Brampton mobility plan.
And Minister of Transportation.
Perfect. All in favor? That carries. Sorry, there's delegations. My apologies. We're not going to bring that forward yet. We have from Scooty, Shoaib Ahmed and Mouz Ahmed from Scooty. Welcome, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My apologies for not being here earlier. We're here on behalf of Scooty Mobility. I'm Moaz Ahmed, the Chief Community Officer, and we're here to express our support for the Brampton Mobility Plan and to essentially ask committee to give the approval to the Brampton Mobility Plan, but also develop and direct staff to work forward and develop the implementation of the Brampton Mobility Plan in partnership with micromobility. And I don't mean us in particular, I mean micromobility as an active transport mode that allows you to collect data, that allows you to move people and allows you to connect people to and from transit. What I have basically said is that over the past 10 years, I've had the opportunity of working in many different ways with people in the city of Brampton, from the Brampton Downtown Development Corporation to advocacy for the LRT to helping the city of Brampton develop its micromobility policy, and now to see here as the city of Brampton is taking its investment into enhanced transportation, enhanced public transit, enhanced mobility, and taking those investments further. Over the past 10 years, Brampton has essentially become the regional policy driver for express transit or high-speed transit networks, and also for micromobility. And having that successful first mover status makes it so that people are looking at Brampton and recognizing Brampton as a leader and looking at Brampton as a source of understanding and new direction in how to develop from a suburb into a connected city. We believe that micromobility has an important role to play, and it's not just our idea. Frankly, when we first met Councillor Vicente, he was saying to us that the micromobility plan should actually be part of the transit. He even suggested that our scooters be colored gray and red to match the Zoom buses. What we have here is an opportunity to really deliver on that. And Brampton has been successful in building the Zoom network, in advocating for the LRT, in promoting rapid transit, in aligning housing with transit. And the next step is to bring that micromobility piece in to allow people to connect to and from transit much more easily, much more frequently, and with greater comfort and convenience. When that happens, you will then be able to build the housing that is supporting the transit and getting people to use the transit, whether it's frequent, local, or micromobility. It's all part of the same network and the same connectivity. More housing then brings in more revenue, which then presents the city with more opportunities to collect revenue, whether it's through municipal accommodation tax, or it's through property taxes, or it's through more people generating more economic activity. That is simply what I'm here for. I don't really have much more to say other than we've given our contributions to staff who have worked very hard on developing the plan. It has our full support, and we would just like to see that over the next 25 years, micromobility and active transport becomes a very, very strong part of that network and part of that future Brampton that we're building. Thank you.
Thank you for your delegation. There are no questions. Sylvia?
Hello, my name is Sylvia Roberts. I'm a resident of Ward 3. I've been following the development of this program very closely. Overall, I would like to say thank you very much to staff. This is an ambitious plan, and I believe it's actually doable. There's 8 pages of comments attached to this, and that is what I did in 72 hours. There's going to be more to come. This is basically a blank slate. It's like you're developing a completely new car. There's going to be teething issues. Some of the comments are rough, but a lot of it is, let's fix it now, so when the product gets to the end user, it's fixed, and then we've got all the problems taken care of. In many ways, I don't think we actually need as many billions as they say. The reality is Brampton Transit is extremely good at building Zoom lines. We completed Zoom on time and on budget, and if you look at the cost, it's like $20 million for a line. There's a lot of places here where there's gaps that can be filled on Zoom, and the reality is, if you told Brampton Transit, hey, how about instead of building rapid transit line on Beauvert, how many articulated buses do you need to run on Sandalwood, Beauvert, and Williams Parkway to meet the needs? And so instead of spending $2 billion on building a Beauvert and Airport Road thing, you may say, here's $100 million for articulated buses. And that may be significantly cheaper. For the here and a bunch of this stuff relates to the fact that the planning department is the Department of Planning. It is not the Department of Doing. Brampton Transit does a lot of the stuff. In the West, we do lots of planning and designing stuff. We don't actually do that much anymore. So you have countries like China coming up, and they're actually really good at doing stuff. And first they kind of copied us, but now they're just leaving us in the dust because they got really good at knowing how to do stuff and then taking that a step further. What the big thing needed is Brampton Transit needs to have in-house facilities, planning staff. You'll see, how do we actually make this achievable? how do we do this in a reasonable amount of time? It can be done. For Steeles, I'm sure Ryan Lakeman gave you a very detailed explanation of here is why making Steeles a 4-lane general lane road is a very bad idea from a freight perspective. And while we have Steeles from Highway 10 to Bramley Go as a BRT there, as a Queen Street style BRT, we're not going to do that by 2031. But if the city wants, and you actually put the effort in, you could have an environmental assessment, get in bus lanes, and then order a large number of buses, and you can run it very frequently. Steeles already runs more frequently than every 4 minutes in rush hour. It will be running I think it's every 3 minutes in rush hour as of fall next year once the Chinguacousy Zoom is done. There simply is not capacity to add that many more buses. So Steeles is going to be more expensive on that. There's a lot of ways to improve it. If you look, you've probably gotten some sticker shock from the updated stuff for the Queen Street BRT. Most of that is actually the cost of a road widening, not the actual transit project. So you may have, okay, so the transit project is $100 million, and then the road widening is $1 billion. If you actually go into the study, which Metrolinx has probably circulated to you and has not yet been released to the public, that's probably what the breakdown is going to be. So there's a lot to do here. It's a very good plan. There's room for improvement, but we'll get there on the 5-year update for it. We need to make sure that the 5-year update actually happens in 5 years. This is an update. This update took 10 years, and I understand it's a clean rewrite, so it took more time. But we do need to make sure the next 5-year plan actually happens in 5 years, and you need to have Brampton Transit to have the staff to be able, okay, how do we actually deliver on this? Thank you. That's my delegation.
Thank you very much for your delegation. So the report and delegations and correspondence has been moved by Councillor Santos. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Now we have item 9.1, which was held by Councillor Vicente, Brampton Heritage Board minutes. Councillor Vicente. Is he on the? I can hold it and come back to, nope, there he is. Councillor Vicente, Brampton Heritage Board minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and apologies. With respect to the Brampton Heritage Board, recommendation for designation of a number of properties, 3 in fact, 1 in Ward 1 and 2 in Ward 3, wanted to revise the report, receive the report, and ask staff to communicate and work with the owners of the properties, and if they provide consent, for the report to come back for us to approve here at council. That's my ask, Mr. Chair, and I've spoken with Councillor Keenan, who also represents 2 of the properties in the report.
Okay. And were you asking for one of the recommendations to be removed and replaced with your comments?
Thank you, Chair. Go with number 1. We received the report.
Yep.
And then we can strike 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, and then instead ask staff to work with the owners of the properties and then obtain their consent to proceed with the designation. And if that consent is received by the city, to report back here to council or to planning.
Not to the Heritage Board?
No, here.
Here, okay.
The Heritage Board has already given their recommendation.
Okay. Okay.
Through the chair, through to Councillor Vicente, staff will take that as direction, report back accordingly.
Okay, thank you. You happy with the wording? Okay. Been moved by Councillor Vicente. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is the other business item on DCs, and just want to start by officially asking for staff to report at council this week on DCs based off of the staff report and the presentation. So I'd like to ask for the presentation to come to council this week on the DC incentives for residential development. I understand that there's been a confidential briefing note, so can't talk too much about the briefing note. But I don't know if I've ever seen a briefing note that was so anti what members of council wanted to do. Just the way the wording and the way it's written. I think when staff, and I guess I understand that Mayor Brown asked for the briefing note. I think in future, maybe briefing notes should just be the information and not how you feel or what you think. And don't use some of the words that you use in there to make it seem like it's a negative thing that council wants to do or something to the effect. I think it's actually extremely unprofessional when a briefing note comes to members of council in a way of trying to convince them not to do this. I think it's important that staff recognize that it's their job to provide information and not actually how you feel on any given day. I think that's important for us to make decisions. And I would ask that all future briefing notes, if they go against what council is requesting, or if they don't work with other departments that council has asked for staff reports to come back in terms of working with other departments, I don't ever think that those briefing notes should be confidential. And I'll ask in the future that if a briefing note comes to members of council by way of email that's confidential, I'll ask for that briefing note to be made public. I'll ask for a special place on our website that all briefing notes that councilors receive go there for full transparency in the future. I think briefing notes should just be the information, and that's it. So that's what I have to say about the briefing note that was added. I'm going to try and get it into the public. We'll see, but we'll see how the conversation goes on Wednesday when it's actually staff, which council requested, that staff from the departments work together to bring a staff report to council or to committee for us to make those decisions. So I'd like to move that staff bring the report and the presentation. Carolyn, you're happy to present the presentation on Wednesday. Thank you very much. I'm happy to move that. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is 11.1 with the added 11.1.1.1 and I guess the motion, that'll be 11.1.1.1.1. We have the motion and then the report is here. Councillor Fortini speaking to any of the 11.1s, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just seen the motion now. So I wish we'll had a lot before earlier. We can read it.
Staff, we'll bring staff up to summarize the.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Through the chair, I'll defer to Alex Epe and Francois to, I think, summarize, just to remind council on the original application and the new submission that has been brought forward. And then the council can consider the motion before them.
Thank you through the chair. Francois here from Planning and Development Services, Principal Planner. So originally, thank you. Can you hear me better now? Thanks. So the recommendation report was originally presented at the July 7th PDC meeting, and it was seeking approval of an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, and as well as a draft plan of subdivision was also included for information purposes, only to provide context for council and the public. And essentially this application was presented, and a recommendation for approval was proposed. Originally, the application suggested the approval of a low and medium density residential development consisting of 31 dwellings. Thank you. 31 freehold residential dwellings comprised of 27 townhouses and 4 single detached dwellings. The applicant has since made revisions to their proposal, now suggesting 26 single detached dwellings only, removing all previously proposed townhouse blocks. No further changes have been made to the application. And on screen here is a draft motion, which perhaps I can defer to my colleagues here.
Speak to the motion itself that we have up on the screen. Really, it speaks to the background of when it was that the previous report from city staff had been received by Planning Development Committee. It was referred back to staff at that time. Thereafter, as Francois notes, the application has now been revised by the applicant to remove all semi-detached units, and it's exclusively single detached units now. We note here within the motion that staff is recommending approval of the revised application. We find that it does satisfy all the requirements as per the legislation, the provincial policy statement, the city's official plan, so compliant in all of those ways. Staff is supportive of the development and believe it is an improvement beyond what had been proposed by the applicant. There are attachments to the motion here which speak to the amendments that would be needed to facilitate this revised proposal. The attachments are in particular the official plan amendments to the Brampton plan, to the secondary plan as well, and to the zoning bylaw. And a copy of the attached revised plan from the applicant is with the motion itself as well.
Thanks, Alan. Councillor Fortini.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Who brought the motion forward?
I just brought it forward.
Well, you know, so actually we're supporting what's there now. And what made the changes all of a sudden within 1 week? How do we?
Through Mr. Chair, I can't speak to the background in particular on what the motivations were for the applicants to come forward, but the applicant has made the changes proposed and for consideration.
Well, it's funny that yesterday we were at the Woodard there. You get all the traffic and all there. It was all on the side streets. There was no parking. We spent over an hour going round and round. Here we are, we're putting this here. You know, I can't support it. I will ask for a recorded vote on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Medeiros.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So to staff, and thank you for bringing this. So if I understand this application, if I recall, because I know we've punted this around, lack of a better term. So in 2023, the original application comes in? Okay, so, yeah, go ahead.
Just looking to confirm exactly.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. That's generally correct.
So through you, Mr. Chair, so through 2023, and at the time, the decision was, if I recall, to sort of defer it, work with the community applicants, and come back with another plan, which they've done. But sometimes it feels like this is the third time they've come and revised this plan to come forward. Am I accurate to say, or?
I believe, in my knowledge, you're accurate to say, but just if you, the original plan was a positive staff report. The next change was a positive staff report. Is this the third or the fourth?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can speak to the original application as it had come in. It was of a particular version staff had worked with the applicants towards making some improvements to that plan. In particular, we worked with them to remove the access that had been proposed to Fitzpatrick Drive, so it was then removed and it's solely on the Gore Road now. There were some other improvements as well where staff had worked with the applicant towards including some single detached dwellings at the southern end of the plan, improving the character of the site at Fitzpatrick, and also to include what are greater rear yard depths from the adjacent landowner to the west, so that there's 7.5 meter rear yard setbacks. At that point in time, staff had made a recommendation or brought a recommendation report forward for Planning Development and Committee to consider. At that point in time, that report was essentially referred back to staff. Since that time, this applicant has now made these changes as noted in the motion in front of Planning Development Committee.
So through you, Mr. Chair, and I guess what I'm trying to get at, you know, if you take a step back in terms of, you know, I've sat here and I want to commend the local area councillors. I know Councillor Fortini has been very vocal on ensuring the position of the residents. And, you know, I admire that. And I think in general, council supports each other and supports each other's, especially the local area councillors. The thing that I have trouble with, this is the third time. And, you know, what I do have trouble with when we sit here and take a step back, when the province gave super mayor's powers, it's for exactly these type of situations where council has 3 positive recommendations. So it's not 1, it's not 2, it's 3. So 3 positive recommendations. And when we sit here, and I do understand it's a challenge because it's not my area. So I'm speaking freely because, you know, it's a different consideration. However, if we look at the technical merits, if I'm hearing, you know, for us to turn this down, there's a strong technical reason why. And from the staff report, I don't see it. And I'm looking for every reason to support my councillors because they are convincing, they are working hard, they are, you know, representing. However, if we've sort of given the opportunity for the local area councillors to work with staff, to work with the residents, and here we are again, and it's been the 3rd time, then what does that say about me as a councillor? If we're right now in a city that needs housing, we have someone who, you know, the poor guy who bought the land and was trying to develop this, we've taken him, you know, 2-3 years, and the market just dumped. So I have an issue not supporting this, because essentially, what type of message does that send when we're sort of in this time that someone is trying to get something approved, and technically, I can't sit here and give one rational reason. If I hear about the congestion there, I was at the Gurdwara with Councillor Fortini. I do accept that, you know, there are challenges with it, but if staff, you know, did its due diligence, which I think they did, I just, you know, and part of me speaking, and my colleagues, my apologies, I just do want to convey to the residents that the local area councillors have worked hard on your behalf, but there's no more convincing that they can do to me now, just because from a technical reason, if we send this to the OMB, we're basically just spending good taxpayers' money on defending something that's undefensible. And I haven't heard one technical reason. So if anyone can sit here and tell me one technical reason which we haven't quantified or qualified and analyzed, I'm willing to say no. But I don't have one reason. So unless staff can present something to me, then, you know, how can I, and Councillor Keenan and myself and probably the downtown councillors, we're dealing with density, we're trying to densify, we're trying to, so to say, and you know, if the applicant was here and did not make those changes and said, no, I want those stacked townhouses, then I would say, okay, maybe, but they've changed their plan 3 times. So, you know, at that stage, then I have to be supportive of it, but I do want to recognize the area councillors did a yeoman's job. You guys make it difficult for me to support it, and I want to thank you, and I know it's been a difficult file, but this is where you got to sort of stand up and, you know, do what's right. So in this case, I have to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Medeiros. Before we go to Councillor Power, members, if you want to get on the speakers list, let me know. We're having a little bit of an issue for the request to speak. So give me a little wave. I'll put you down old school style on a list, and then we'll go to you. Councillor Power.
Thank you, and through the chair. I'm still struggling with the estate planning or the zoning, estate zoning in this area, and I know a number of wards have estate zoning. And, you know, if I was if I had an estate property, or if I bought under the pretenses of estate property, and, you know, I would think that's your forever home, or your home that you're carrying on through generations and generations. Why should we be changing that zoning and allowing multiple dwellings or intensifying that area? That's where I struggle with it.
Through the chair, through to Councillor Power. So a couple things. One, staff brought forward a Brampton plan, our new official plan, about a year and a half ago now. Council endorsed that. That did recognize the estate residential designations, and our comprehensive zoning bylaw that will further enshrine that is coming forth on October 6th. But to answer your question as to why the province, and I know this council has mentioned it before, has put forth a policy and legislative regime that suggests where appropriate, in the eyes of sort of that professional planner's opinion, that intensification is permitted. And because we signed a housing pledge, part of our funding commitments from the province and the federal government is hinged upon the types of intensification and where they are. So that's why you're seeing a level of intensification in estate residential areas that we hadn't seen before.
Councilor Power.
Thanks, Chair. Just to clarify, we did talk about estate residentials, and we did talk about protecting certain areas. And you're saying the report's coming when?
Through the chair, through to Councillor Power, just to clarify. So the Brampton plan has a strong policy regime to protect the estate nature of those areas that were historically protected. Parallel to that, the province continues to put forth a policy and legislation that forces municipalities to intensify throughout their city, including some of those estate residential areas. The report that I was referring to is the zoning bylaw, because your comment mentioned zoning, and that's coming on October 6th, not necessarily for this area, but for the entire city.
So, again, I still stand by my original thing. Why are we changing estate zoning when we've gone through this exercise and said we wanted to protect? And there's a number of areas within the city, not just on Nagore Road.
Thank you, Councilor Power. Councilor Fortini, you're back on the list.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And to Steve, yet we need we're doing this housing pledge, that we need so many homes, and we're short. How many applications have we now approved in the last year? And we don't go into this. This is the only area that has estate lots. There's nothing else. So once we start destroying this area, we have nothing in that part of the city. Now, we were there yesterday. They got no sidewalks. The roads were bumper to bumper on both sides. There was no parking, and here we are putting 28 homes. I don't see the difference between the changing of this in 1 week compared to what he had the 3 singles and the townhouse. It's the same thing. He minus 1. So there's really no changes. So, you know, there's state lots, right? It's not right. You know, like we look at application, we're looking at the homes, we're looking at this, but then when it comes to other areas, it looks like we defer it or we never support it. And when there's an OMB, we still go and say we're going to go fight it. So, you know, I'm not going to support this. And again, I want a recorded vote.
Thank you, Councilor Fortini. Recorded vote will be called. Councilor Medeiros.
Just a clarification there, and thank you through Mr. Chair, maybe to legal. Usually at the OMB, is that a justification to say that it's estate area, for example? Would that be a technical justification that the OMB would hear?
Well,
So I just say be careful.
Go ahead.
One, because
okay.
if it does get turned down, if it go to the OMB, you will not be representing us. We'll be needing outside legal. So I think if you want an answer to that question,
So
I would say we go in camera.
I guess maybe not an answer, but my understanding when we turn down an application, we do have to provide a justification regardless what it is publicly that is going to be used at the OMB. So for, I guess, those voting no, what would be the justification?
For sure. I'll go to Steve or Alan for that question to talk about the Planning Act instead of legal, Matt, if you don't mind. Thanks.
Through you, Chair Pelleshi, through to Councilor Medeiros. So in this particular, in any particular instance where you have an estate residential designation and you have a new application that provides something that is not exactly matching that density, staff then use sort of the criteria, again, put forth by the province to see if the context of that level of intensification can work with the estate residential development that's already established. And based on the motion you have before you and the time that staff had to review the new submission, it's in staff's position that the single-family detached development is within the overall context, keeping the overall context of that well-established estate area.
Thanks, Councilor Medeiros. Nobody, no other speakers, but move the chair be heard. Thank you very much. So I have to say, because I have never seen an applicant come back so many times willing to work with staff, willing to work with the residents. I've turned down 3 applications that had positive staff reports in my 12 years as a councillor. Kennedy and Beauvard, Mayfield and High Point, and McLaughlin Road. 3 applications that I've turned down that I lost, that actually, and one member of council, one of the area councillors actually supported one of them. But each one then went to the OMB. Each one won based off of that staff report. Each one was able to build and is currently building today. But not one of them went back to the residents after the area councillors didn't approve of what they were building to try and work with the residents and try and make any changes. Not one of them made any changes. They went and did a dog and pony show just to listen to what the residents had to say, but they came back with the exact same application every single time. And I don't know if I've ever had an application that came to, in the areas that I represent over the 12 years, and Councillor Brar represents now with me over this term, not one applicant has come and made so many changes, and not just little changes, significant changes to their application. And based off of that, with the time, the work, that effort that staff have put into each one of the applications and the changes, to go against the staff report here today is I think it certainly doesn't do service to the staff that have worked hard on this, and the fact that applicants, in the future, work with residents and make changes that need to be made and to continue to run and build the city and do some great things. So based off of that, I certainly will be supporting the motion and the applicant for their, I know of it's actually 4 changes that they, because it goes back long time ago. It was initially retail that the residents didn't want, but then has now changed so many times. So with that being said, we'll ask the clerk to call recorded vote.
Through you, Chair, the motion is on the screen for everybody to see clearly. I'll ask all members in support of the motion on screen to please stand. I see Councillor Medeiros, Councillor Palashi, Councillor Keenan, and Councillor Vicente, and Councillor Santos. And all those opposed, please stand. I see Councillor Fortini, Deputy Mayor Singh, and Councillor Power. We have 2 councillors online. Councillor Tour, how do you vote?
Vote against.
Councillor Brar, how do you vote?
In favor.
So we have 4 votes negative. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. The next item is the correspondence also be supported. I didn't, Councillor Fortini, you'll move that we receive the correspondence. based off that item. All in favor? That carries. 11.2, verbal update from Melinda, Principal Planner Supervisor, Integrated City Planning, regarding the Sunfield Homes Housing Project.
Through you, Chair Palashi, maybe.
Stephen.
I'll start and then we'll defer to Melinda for any details. But council will recall, this item goes back to September 3rd Committee of Council when Sunfield Homes, or Weston Consulting on behalf of Sunfield Homes, gave a delegation for 3 sites in Brampton. And then on September 10th, staff received further direction to report back on options for Sunfield Homes to consider. On September 19th, staff received correspondence from Sunfield Homes indicating they are intending to file now their housing CIP application for the 3 sites under a nonprofit corporation. And just by way of a quick background reminder for council, this is for 3 sites, their Church Street site, McMurtry Road, and Dixie Road. That would consist of 78 affordable rental housing units. So staff are now reviewing the applications that they've submitted for these 3 sites on their nonprofit corporation. I believe they're undertaking the paperwork to do that, and we'll report back to council at the appropriate time.
Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Steve, to you and your team. Fantastic news that they're going to do it through their non-for-profit arm, which is welcomed. I'm just going to ask Steve that if you and your team could bring this back for Wednesday's council. I just know that timing is of the essence on this one.
Through the chair, through to you, Councillor Keenan, we'll take that as direction.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Medeiros.
My apologies. Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so Councillor Keenan already did, and I just want to say thank you to staff. And it's great that when you find a partner to work with the municipality to build, such needed housing, I think it's a big win for all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Medeiros. Deputy Mayor Singh.
Just want to say thank you to staff, thank you to the area councilors. I believe this funding should have been used for nonprofits. The only caveat I would have is just make sure we fulfill all our commitments to the other applicants because they've signed contracts. That's the only caveat I'd add, but more than happy to support the nonprofit sector. Thank you.
Excellent. Councillor Santos.
Just finally, Mr. Chair, to say thanks to the local, to Councillor Keenan, Councillor Medeiros. Sunfield has some projects in the area I represent as well, and thank you to staff for making this happen, and happy to support the nonprofit sector.
Excellent. With that, I'll just say thank you to staff for the amount of work that you're about to do. Really appreciate it. But we'll thank you again once you come back. And to the Sunfield, appreciate you coming out today, and really appreciate you taking such a great interest in delivering much needed housing for residents of Brampton. So thank you very much. Been moved by Councillor Keenan. It's just a verbal update. Was there direction? Just to report back. So we'll have that as direction. All in favor? That carries. With that, council question period. Any members of council have any questions with anything related to the agenda today? Seeing none. Public question period. Any members of the public wish to come down and ask any questions regarding anything that's on the agenda here today? Seeing none. No closed session adjournment. Been moved by Councillor Power that we adjourn today's meeting. Our next regular scheduled meeting is Monday, October the 6th, 2025 at 7 p.m. or at the call of the chair. All in favor? That carries. Have a great day, everybody.